Welcome to Soulful Conversations with Nadjejda. I'm Nadjejda Chapoteau. I am an empowerment and confidence coach, spiritual teacher, and speaker. I am passionate about dancing. I love to dance. If you follow me on social media, I'm sure you've seen some videos of me dancing. It's one of my favorite things. It is definitely what I'm most passionate about. But aside from dancing, I'm passionate about social justice, spiritual growth, love, making a difference. Specifically, I'm really all about empowering and really giving back and making a difference in causes that matter to me, like empowering women and children in my homeland, Haiti. In terms of my work, I'm very much, which is very much in line with my work, empowering women to really embrace who they are, love who they are, and share their authentic selves with the world. As a coach, I empower women entrepreneurs who are ambitious, determined, visionaries, thought leaders. I help them experience clarity, ease, confidence, and fun in their businesses by discovering their message and finding their niche. I am so excited about my guest today. She is actually a fellow Haitian American woman, right? So Yvelette Stines is an author, blogger, wellness, and writing coach. She has been writing for 10 years about beauty, wellness, lifestyle and business. She started Call Me Corners, a blog that motivates leaders to live a calm and healthy lifestyle. Through her new venture, Pages and Pens, she helps writers find their voice, which is so important, release blogs, heal, and get published. She does this through workshops and coaching. Yvelette is happy to merge her two passions, wellness and writing, to help others heal and express themselves authentically. I really love that. Thank you for joining me today, Yvelette.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I know, I'm really excited, and I have to say, what you do truly resonates with me. And I have to say, I'm curious, because since you do writing, or do you help people specifically? And actually, I normally don't even do that, but I'm just curious about this, because that came up for me as I was reading your bio, your introduction a little bit before we got on. Do you help people, like, for example, in terms of writing, like content, their blog, or are you also a book coach? Do you help them write books?
Well, I've done both. Yes, I've ghostwrited for folks for their blogs. I help them with the ideation and content aspect, and also a book coach. I self-published 2 books, so the aspect of putting the book together, getting the ISBNs, and the copyright, and how to actually, from start to finish, formulate the book and write it. Some people just needed the steps, and others needed actually coaching through the writing process of their book. So I've done both on both ends. Yeah.
Great. No, okay, great. I love that. No, because I was like, I want to know, because maybe one day when I'm ready to write my book, I know who to go to. So that's good to know.
For sure, yes. Yes.
So tell me, so hey, I know, a writing coach, that's somebody that I know. So good to know. So I'm just curious. So I know for you, you are all about living your life fully and really following your dreams. Tell me about your journey through, really, because it seems to me like you said, you've combined both your passions. So you're doing work that you love. How did you get to this place?
It's so interesting because it's like the journey and understanding and going through the process to see the full destination. And we all have to go through some things to fully be ready to show up for the work to do. And there's a lot of ideas that came earlier for me, and it's just like I wasn't in the space or ready to do it. And then they come back. I started writing 10 years ago. I was in law school and it didn't work out. I'm also very dyslexic. So at that time I was like, what am I going to do now? And I heard this voice say that one thing you always wanted to do. And of course, imposter syndrome came up, like, you are a horrible speller, you're horrible at grammar. So how are you going to like create a living as a writer? So I was like, okay, and the voice got louder. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to write. So I'm going to take the whole year and figure this out. Of course, when people are like, you're going to do what? One, I'm from Michigan, two, having a Haitian parent. It's like, that's a hobby. You need to go figure out what you're about to do with your life. And,
yes, I know that.
yeah, like you're going to own the forest to get the paper? Because no.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I just made that intention and declaration. I'm like, I want to be published in a glossy magazine by the end of the year. And throughout that year, no contacts, had no idea how to write a pitch letter. I just worked. There was this publication called Detroit Poetry Collective that was kind enough and gracious enough to hire me to write as a health writer. So I wrote a small piece on the benefit of health food. So I Skittles taste the rainbows, like here's a rainbow of healthy foods. It was September, I found an ad for Atlanta Life and I pitched to them and the editor was like, oh great, feel free to pitch. That's a nice version of saying no. So I'm like, I went about my way. And 3 weeks later, she's like, can you redo the story and extend it? And, with some quotes and some expert quotes, and it will be published in the December issue. I was like, oh, wow. So that's what I've done. And throughout the time, I've been writing, freelancing, creating content. I've also taught during the same time as writing on the freelance end, and teaching was like my job every day. And through that, the wellness aspect, I have a master's in holistic nutrition, and that's something I wanted to do to write about. I like the holistic aspect of wellness and healing, and also a second degree Reiki practitioner. So that whole aspect of people heal to find, their truth and center, and just the creative and healing aspect. So eventually, I was working in all three of these towards something, but at the time it was just like you're consistently going through the process. So this year, my last job was digital editor of The Source, and I sat down and I had surgery. And through that time, there were some things that were leading up, like I love to write, I love healing, I know how to write, so let's combine this and teach people how to write from a healing space and also a creative space if they want to get published or publish their book. And that's how Pages of Pens came about, which I started in September. And it's just been a really interesting journey to see the full circle of going through the process of writing, understanding what that means when you have a million rejections, but just to keep going, and understanding job leads you to something else to help you create that full circle moment to know that you're ready to show up and you're ready to hold space for people to do the same thing. Yeah.
So tell me, throughout this, journey, especially like you were saying how, we all know about Haitian parents. How did you, because, my audience for the most part are women entrepreneurs. So I'm just curious, you're an entrepreneur too. How did you stay motivated? Like, how did you surround yourself with, did you have a support system that to really be able to stay on point and, stay on, be there, not give up when things, like you were saying, you're sending things, not everything is going to get approved,
To be completely transparent, there were a lot of come to Jesus moments where I'm like, I need to see a sign clear as day. Or I'm done. I'm going to shut this all down tomorrow. And then you eventually see something like maybe a quote or a notebook, or somebody sends you an inbox out of the blue that you're like, you know what, that's, you need to keep going. And sometimes we have our moments where it's like a week or a couple of days where you just can't do anything. And that's okay too, because maybe that's your time to recalibrate. And I think the biggest thing with that, especially being a creative and an entrepreneur, is understanding and knowing your why and your purpose behind that. Because when you remember that, there's I want to do this because, but when you know your why, and that always remind yourself of that, that's that motivation to keep going. And a lot of times that why changes. A lot of times our goals can be ego-centered, legacy-centered. But the bottom line is we always get back to our roots and understand, okay, I know why I wanted to show up for this. I know why I wanted to do this. There are times we question our own existence. Why did I choose to do this one thing? And then you remember that, because I think a lot of times when we when things aren't working, we see what's in front of us versus the vision beyond. And it's a consistent work on like, remember your vision, remember your why, remember what spirit is telling you, remember what faith is, because it's not what you see, it's what you know, and just work that direction.
You know, yeah, and you know what? And I don't know if it's been your experience, but
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that, you know, aside from my why, I remember I was sharing that with a friend once. She's a fellow entrepreneur too, is that, and she said to me, you know, this is exactly why, that's exactly what you need to be doing. Is that I told her that I don't know what else I would do. Like in some way, if I were to say, okay, I'm shutting this down, you know, I really don't know what I would do. Like I would feel completely lost. I told her, like, I would just be like, you know, probably like I would be lost. And I think that, you know, that is a sign that that's exactly what we need to be doing when we feel like I don't see anything else.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. So what would you say to, you know, aside, you know, if there were somebody like what, you know, for you, was there something like what happened that made you feel like, okay, I am doing this? Because for some of us, it could be, okay, we were not happy at work or something, or a life-changing event. Like, what was it for you?
I think it was the life-changing event, and it was also like, you know, when you're in law school or graduate school program, you feel like, oh, my life is going to start after this, and it's going to be, you know, a picket fence and 2.5 kids and brownstone in Brooklyn, if that's where you want to live, and you're going to go on your way. That's not necessarily the case. It might be for some people, and I think also at that time, it was like writing was always in the back of my mind. I always loved to write. I loved to read. I remember in high school, even like I was clever enough because we had a place for study hall, but you know, I was like, can I just go to the library? Would I do my homework? Yes, but I remember pulling magazines and looking at mastheads and studying what they look like and just looking at them. And being from Michigan, which is in the middle of America, the Mitten State, it was like such a far reach to be published in one of these magazines or to have a book. And it's just like, wow, you know. And I think because that has been a dream for my whole life, we always tend to take the safe route. It's like, your dreams are great, but you need to, you know, make sure that you're okay. And at that time, I'm like, I'm not really okay right now because I feel like a failure, but what else do I have to do but try? You know, I can only try this. And if it doesn't work, then at least I try. But if it does, then that makes it golden. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. So tell me now, I know one of your things that you do is you help, you know, you help your clients, the people you work with, is to find their voice through writing. Yes. So they can share themselves, they can heal and be authentic. Was writing that, was writing a part of your own healing journey and also you finding your voice?
Yes, so the journaling is a very, very, very powerful resource if you want to start writing. And a lot of times people are like, okay, now what do I write? I would say start with writing prompts. One program that I went through, I was 19 years old. I did it a few years ago, and I'm doing it again this year with a group of writers, actually. It's called The Artist's Way. I actually have the book right here because I could go through some stuff after this, by Julia Cameron, and it's 15 weeks, and she shares something called morning pages, and I've been doing it for over 20 years, and it's 3 pages of longhand writing, or you just write for 10 minutes. It's like out of your subconscious. So all you can say is, I don't know what to write, and that's 3 full pages. That's fine. But eventually what it does is create stamina, and it helps your voice, and it starts pulling from your subconscious mind. So that's where the ideas flow, and that's where the healing process starts. And that's where some things are coming up that you might need to pay attention to move along on that. So it's a really, really great book. And it's 15 weeks, like, and there's, you know, artist dates and exercises in there, but it's beautiful because each time you get something different from it. And it's just, I really, really highly recommend that book. And I just think on another level, journaling, and I think a lot of people are going the entrepreneurial route and understanding businesses. There's a heart space, and people want to know who you are. And that's the aspect of storytelling. And it's like, I think a lot of times I'm in my 30s, so we're conditioned to learn, like, you have this professional voice and it has to be like, you know, what are your receipts academically, maybe your career-wise, but it's like people want to connect with you. So how do you share your story in that space? And there can be fear with that too, to be authentic, but yeah, I think the storytelling aspect from the business side and just on a personal level, going through that space and healing. And sometimes the writing can be the beginning for you to speak it and share your testimony with others.
Yes, totally, totally. Yeah, no, because it's true. Like, I like what you shared, because it's when you said people want to know about you, people want to share your stories. I think that's another thing, you know, and that's one of the big part with my work, is that a lot of times, you know, when people start businesses and they focus a lot on, like, okay, this is what I do for you, this is what I do, this is what you're gonna get. But people are not opening up and allowing people to know about themselves and allowing people to know about what they stand for, which is why a lot of times people don't relate to them. You know, story that
I completely agree. Absolutely. And it's been a process, I think, with social media. Like, you know, I've learned to just consistently do the work. And I know there's a lot of groups of them, they're like, share your wins. But I'm getting used to that myself, you know, just because if you're always consistently working, it's like, okay, here's the goal, it's done, that's great, here it is. But it's like, there's those little steps that are great too. So make sure you celebrate that and just, you know, like you said, sharing your story more and being more authentic and just putting yourself out there. In a sense, not to say, oh, look at me, but just to share and connect with people. That human connection.
Well, that is the thing, is that, you know, for me, I have to say, you know, my message is be you and share it with the world. So I share a lot of me. I share a lot of me and sometimes, you know, that voice in my, oh, people are going to say you're all about you. And I'm like, no, because it's actually, you know, actually for me, I'm an example. I want to show women that, because for a lot of us, we grew up with this thing of like, oh, you know, you know, you don't want to be, you shouldn't, you know, shouldn't be talking about you, or, you know, people, like for me, I've shared that before, that sometimes I'm about to share something and then it says, oh, people don't want to hear about you, or you're too much about you. And that's voice telling me and keeping us from really sharing ourselves, you know?
Absolutely.
The thing is that, so, and the thing is, the more I share myself, the more people relate to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that one sharing could help somebody that we don't even realize we're helping.
Totally. That is, and you know what it is? That is one of the things, like for me, I've noticed that the post where get to be vulnerable, where I share myself a lot more and I'm like more vulnerable, or the post that people like resonate with them and they're like, wow, I get you, or I've dealt with this, or this is, you know, even with my email list, I've written things and then somebody gets back to me and says, this is exact, like I needed to hear this because I'm going through this, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious for you, since you know, you've had to do your own stuff, how did you deal, because I'm sure some people, especially when we talk about people finding their voice and writing and being authentic and sharing their stories, how do you deal with, you know, that voice in your head or whatever it is about having to really put yourself out there and share your story? How do you deal with that?
I'm still dealing with it now.
We all do, but it's one thing that, because you do it, because that's I'm doing it. There are people who are like stuck, or they do it like once in a while, you know?
Yeah, and I find myself, I do that. I think I go in spurts and go full on, and then it's like, ooh, that's a lot. Let me just back up and go back introverted shell a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown's work, and that's I got that work from her. She says, I get a vulnerability hangover after I've like laid out. I'm like, I feel naked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you know.
How do you deal with it? What gets you back in that arena? What gets you back to write and share again? Like, how do you deal with it?
You know, it's very interesting because I feel like I had the idea for Pages and Pens. It was funny. I actually found a notebook and it was all laid out, and it was in 2014, and I really would have had no business starting it then. And when you think of spaces and you think of putting yourself out there in that way, I think God shows us a sneak peek of our ability. We just have to be in the physical form. So I think it's part understanding that there is a social responsibility as an entrepreneur, and also understanding if you want to hold space for people to open up, you have to do the same thing. And I am notorious, and I'll just be completely transparent. Like I give people advice for days, and sometimes I don't even take it myself. Like, oh, go post this and then tag this and do this. And it's like, and you just like, yay, they did it. And where's your, you know? So it's just, and I think also not growing up with social media, I know it's part intentional, part sharing, part just being a human, because we found each other anyway. Somehow, one way or another, we find each other. I think I answered your question, but I think it's just one, the motivational piece, and then two, understanding, especially with the writing, to encourage others to do the same and be brave. You have to show up and do it.
Yes.
Because it gives them that courage to share their stories, and even if they're not ready to share, but at least write it down and, you know, money where your mouth is. Yeah.
No, totally. I get that. Because basically what you're saying is that in some way as an entrepreneur, we have a responsibility. And the type of work that you're doing, that I'm doing, you know, I often say I'm walking my talk.
Yes.
Telling you, oh, you know, go out there. And that's also why, you know, like just the other day I was saying, you know, I struggled with sometimes I'm like, oh, why, you know, it's like that voice saying, oh, you're going to put another picture of you. And I'm like, that's my brand.
Yeah.
You know? When I started, one of my cousins, somebody was like, oh, you need a logo. And then I did a logo, and it was like, there was a whole mess story around that. But then after that, at some point I was like, you know what? No, I don't need a logo. I'm the brand. Like I was like, because I noticed in the coaching industry, a lot of people don't. So, you know, and I want people to know that, you know, it's okay for you to actually, one of the things I've realized is as an entrepreneur, you need to be your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah. That's so true.
Putting yourself out there, sharing your wins, like you said, sharing, and then also sharing, but it's not like, you know, it's not like we're just coming and sharing. We're actually sharing that, oh, you know what, I'm having a shitty day, and this is what I did, or whatever, you know what I mean? So that's another thing. I think if it was like, I would just come and say, hey, you know, just got this client, just got, you know, it was all up, then it wouldn't be real, you know?
Right, that's so true. And just to show the times, because entrepreneurship is not easy in those days where you're like, now what do I do? You know?
Yeah.
Work through that process and share.
Yes, totally. What are your thoughts on
those days too?
Yeah.
Yes,
totally. What are your thoughts on women empowerment?
Women empowerment, I think it is so essential and important, because women, we're the force of the earth. We create humans. You know, we're strong, we're bendable, but not breakable. We're strong, but we're gentle. We're vulnerable, but, you know, there's the tough as nails as well. So there's so much that embodies women, but unfortunately, society shifts that in ways. So it's so important for women to support each other. It's so important for women to come together and share our voices, in a sense, because we're like, you know, the supporters of Earth. Like if you think of Mother Earth, and so it's essential, especially in entrepreneurship, for women to create a collective and within your community, you know, within other communities, to come together and find that support system. Because there's nothing like friends, you know?
Yeah, totally. And do you believe in having a life purpose? And if you do you have one? And do you mind sharing it with us?
Sure. I do believe in having a life purpose. And I think my life purpose, like, I stand on integrity, character, and strength. And I also like to help people find their truth, heal, and do that through entertainment and education. You know, I mean, I know I'm like, people when they see me, they're like, oh, you're so calm and introverted, but I can be really goofy and crass at times, and that's okay too. But just My sister, she's more of that side of me, so it's just funny. I feel bad for her sometimes, but yeah, just to hold your truth and have integrity and character in everything that you do, because that all follows you. And karma is in alignment, and I'm very, very spiritual too.
Totally great. Thank you. So, what do you believe the world needs more of and why?
Love and truth. Yep, I think there's a huge disconnect with our own heart centers. And as we share and see people, like truly see people and beyond the ego, there'll be more of a connection. I follow the 4 agreements.
Mm.
Helped me so much throughout life. Yes. Yep. And it just helped to see myself and see other people as who they are. Because a lot of times we see people as we are, and we can stop that and just see them truly as they are and understand that hurt people now. You don't have to put up with it, but you can love them from afar and just understand, okay, maybe something happened in the world as to why that they're acting like this, and that's okay. But when you can lead with that, it makes everything so much easier. And it makes you navigate things a lot easier as well, where, you know, maybe in 20s when we're more ego-driven and don't know because we haven't experienced a lot. It's just like, oh, yeah. So I think love and truth, to be true to yourself and ask yourself the right questions.
Yeah. No, thank you. So tell me, what do you stand for in life?
My purpose, I stand for, again, truth and integrity and also spirituality. The spirituality root is so important because that's what you can go back to. That's where you get your strength from. And it's just, faith is second to none. And there are those times, as you know, as an entrepreneur, with those kind of Jesus moments, it's like you really have to have a strong element of faith and truth and just really be true to who you are. And know that every opportunity is not the greatest opportunity. Everything that comes across your desk, you necessarily don't have to entertain or think about. It's okay, because we're going to get tested. We're really being true to who we are and what we present, and that's so important.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, I often say that I don't know how people who don't believe in a higher power or people who don't have a spiritual practice or some way, how they deal with life, you know, because we go through challenges, you know. Sometimes, I mean, I've even seen some people that they're like, I don't believe in God or whatever, and I know they don't have a spiritual practice or something, and I see when stuff happens, the way they react. I mean, I see the difference between those of us who have a practice, you know. I often say that because life happens, you know.
Yeah, it really does. It does.
For us, but that's the thing, is that I think when you don't have a practice, when you don't have a belief in a higher power, really, you feel more lost than those of us who actually.
That's very true. That's
still
very
struggle
true.
with it. Yeah.
And
so what did you say? Go ahead.
I was going to say, like you said, things happen for us, and that helps us. Some people who are spiritual might not know how to navigate something, so it's a good test to get yourself in alignment. And I think sometimes you might fall off a little bit, and it's like, ooh, let's get back on that thing.
Yeah, totally, yes, definitely. So thank you so much, Yvelette. This concludes the interview part. Now I really want you to, I want you to tell people about your work in terms of what you do more, who do you do it for, where they can connect with you. I know you have a free gift for them as well. And don't worry about spelling things out, because everyone, you know, her info, her social media pages, website, the link to her free offer, they're all going to be under the website. So tell us more about you and your work.
Okay, great. So I'm Yvelette, and I have a blog, Calming Corners. I started it 10 years ago, and it helps you live a calm and healthy lifestyle. In this September, I started Pages and Pens, where it is a platform for writers to find their voice, heal, and get published. So you'll find writing tips. There's some freebies on there. that will help you write through resistance. And that particular booklet has quotes, affirmations, and a lot of writing prompts. So if you need coaching or any energy healing, feel free to contact me, and all my information will be on the page in the website.
Great. Okay. So now, what would be your final message to women in our audience, you know, who are like struggling to start writing?
The final message.
Struggling with, well, let me just reframe that. You're struggling. I know this was not planned.
That's okay.
Struggling to find their voice. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because for me, that is a big part of my work. So I know people may be listening, they're struggling with that. They're struggling to find their voice, and they're struggling with writing, and, you know, which would help them with that. So I'm curious, what would you suggest for them?
Absolutely. I would say, yes, your voice matters. And we all go through tests, and that's to help us become a testimony with something. And it might take a minute before you're ready to share, but you're more than enough. Your voice matters, and the world is waiting to hear your story. So if you want to be a writer, if you feel like you should write, pick up your pen and write, and just take it. Understand that it's a journey, and it's not a sprint. Just take your time with it and grow through it and heal, because it's like a muscle. Creativity is like a muscle, and you have to keep at it. You have to keep doing it so you can find your voice and know where you fit. And I would also tell people to read everything you can get your hands on. Read fiction, read motivational, whatever you like, and then read things that challenge you a little bit. So you can, as you are working through finding your voice, you can see other readers, what they're doing, what they like. Because to write, you have to read. And to read, you have to write. I completely, you know, writers are readers. We read all the time, like, you know.
Wow, that's
yeah.
That's a good thing. So let me ask you, like, well, I just thought of one more, and that's something for me that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, you know? Because I often say, which is why sometimes I go and I'm like, you know what, I want to share this with my audience, because I'm sure if I'm going through it, somebody else is going through it, or if I went through it, somebody else may be going through it right now. So for me, I have to say, I will say that I don't like to write, you know?
Okay.
I'm more of a speaking, which is why for me, I chose to do like a podcast and more than writing a blog, you know?
Right.
The thing is that but I say to myself, wait a minute, but I write to my email list every week. Several times a week. My posts can be pretty long at times on social media. But so it's like, I don't know if it's a resistance or if it's like, then it's like be sort of like, for me, in a way, I know people say write the way you would speak, okay? But for me, whenever I'm writing my post, that's what I do. But whenever I think about that I have to write a blog, something like that to submit, or even on my website, or if I think about writing a book, I think that they're going to want me to write a certain way.
Yep.
Which is like, for me, it's like, I can't do it my way, you know? So I'm curious as to what are your thoughts on that? Is that a resistance, or is it with you?
You know, it's interesting. I think it's part resistance, and I think some people are just not wired that way. I'm actually working with a client, and she's so interesting. She's a great writer, but when I give her assignment, she's like, okay, so how do I start this? I'm like, just write. It's okay, just write. And then, like, there's other times when she can just write it out without thinking about it. I think a good thing because there's a couple people that I work with like that, and I encourage in yourself too, if you're better at the shorter, you know, like, I'm just going to put this on social media, I don't have to think about it that much, or your newsletter, you can use that content and extend it into a blog post, or talk it out and then transcribe it and fill it in from there. Because a lot of times, being dyslexic, I know I had an English tutor in high school, and when it came to papers, I was the same way. I just could not get it from my head onto the paper, from my head onto the computer. So I would talk and then transcribe it and then edit it from there. So I think that would be a good start. And then as you get used to it, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. And as you hear yourself talk and hear yourself transcribe, eventually your talking and transcribing can go from your head to the computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get that. And you know what? Actually, because I told you I love to speak, like my phone, I use my phone a lot, the recording on my phone. Because for me, audio, and I would tell people, I'm sure I probably have 2 books in there.
Yeah.
You know, because I even thought about it. I think I was thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I think I would just want to hand it to somebody to just do the typing or do the writing.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And sometimes it's like, if it's not your thing, you prefer to talk. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
I know there are services that do that now.
Yeah.
You submit a video, you submit an audio video to them, and then they type up what you shared. But yeah, I've heard of that before, about what you were saying is how you take a post, a social media post, or you take something from your newsletter and you expand it to a blog to it. Yeah. Totally. Okay, great. Wow. So thank you so much for being here, for joining me, and for giving us so much information, and even a little bit, even extra that I asked.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me on and having me. This is great.
You're welcome. So everyone, like I said, all Yvelette's information is going to be under the video on my website. You'll get to see where you can connect with her on her social media pages. You'll get to get her free gift, her website, and you can connect with her there. And if you're listening to us through Apple Podcasts, same thing, you can visit my website, www.lovelikecoaching.com, and you can see her info on there. If you really enjoyed this and you don't want to miss any other episode, which are available on Thursdays, well, I'm going to be taking a break. I shared that last week. I'm going to be taking a break, sort of like closing the season later this month. But every Thursday when a new episode is available, I share it in my inbox. So if you don't want to subscribe to my email list, which under all of Yvelette's information, you will see the box where you can put in your name and your email address. Once you join my email list, you'll get those every Thursday in your inbox. And once you join, you'll actually also get my free gift, which is my 7 questions to help you reconnect with yourself and have an aligned message in your business. And you'll also get my goodies every week, and if anything else that I'm sharing. So I hope you will do so. If you are, on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. Also, leave us a comment under the video. Let us know what you think about this, what came up for you, what did you get from it. Share it, subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. And thanks again. Until next time, love and light. Take care.